Hey guys, so today we're continuing the History, Flaws, and Cancelled series and looking at the first two generations of the Dodge Durango SUV. Of course, the Durango has returned for 2011 and up until the present year, but that one had a different unibody platform shared with the Jeep Grand Cherokee. The first Durangos were based on the Dodge Dakota, and they had a body-on-frame construction, so this video is obviously focusing on the cancellation of that first Dodge Durango. If you're new to these types of videos, the first part focuses on looking back at the history of the car and all the details and specs, and then we jump to talking about the events that led to the car being cancelled and any flaws that it had. This Durango lived through 2 generations and 12 model years from 1998 to 2009. So let's begin with the first generation from 1998 to 2003. The Durango was first produced in 1997 for the 1998 model year as Dodge's full-size SUV. As I mentioned, the first 2 generations were both based on the Dodge Dakota, featuring a body-on-frame construction, and produced at the Newark assembly plant in Delaware. The models varied over the first generation, starting with just a base 4x4 in the first year, and then just about every model offered from 1999 and onwards could be had with either 4x2 or 4x4. By 2003, the lineup had expanded to 4 models: Sport/SXT, SLT, SLT Plus, and RT at the top. Prices started at $27,000 for the 4x2 Sport and rose up to $38,925 for the 4x4 RT model. The Durango didn't look like most SUVs as it made a bolder statement with a very muscular look. It shared the front end, instrument panel, and front seats with the Dodge Dakota. That front end was instantly recognizable as a Dodge with the crosshair grille, and the body lines and edges gave it a brawny look. Inside, the Durango was designed to seat 7, with theater seating with each row of seats higher than the next to give everyone a good view out front. As a result, the back half of the roof had to be raised almost 2 inches to give the back rows the extra headroom, and Dodge actually tried to play a clever trick here to hide that raised roof section by adding a roof rack in many of the Durango press photos. The second row seats offer cup holders and heating/AC controls, while the third row had decent legroom and space if there were 2 people. The second row seats also fold forward and tumble out of the way. And the last 2 rows can also fold down for extra cargo space if needed. The interior was redesigned for 2001 with a new instrument panel, interior trim, center and overhead consoles, carpets, and steering wheel. Dual climate controls were standard, and the SLT and RTs added leather seating and third row climate controls. Moving on to performance, from 1997 to 2000 there were 3 options for engines: a 5.2-liter V8, a 5.9-liter V8, and a 3.9-liter V6. You can find the specs on screen, but obviously the biggest and most powerful engine was a 5.9-liter Magnum, with an output of 245 horsepower and 335 pound-feet of torque. This engine added $595 to the price of the Durango, and with it you could tow up to 7,500 pounds. Each of these 3 engines would come with a 4-speed automatic transmission. The 5.9-liter V8 in the more performance-oriented RT models also got bumped up by 5 horsepower and 10 pound-feet of torque, up to 250 horsepower and 345 pound-feet of torque. For 2000, Dodge dropped the 3.9-liter V6 from production, and they added in a 4.7-liter Magnum V8 engine that was rated at 235 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque. So that one came with a 4-speed auto at first, but a 5-speed auto was added for 2002. And going forward from 2001 until 2003, there were just 2 engines available, the 4.7 and the 5.9 V8s. One other very cool model was a limited edition Shelby SP360 that had a supercharged version of the 5.9 Magnum engine. The supercharger added lots of power, up to 360 horsepower and 412 pound-feet of torque. This model would get unique wheels, tires, suspension, and Viper blue paint with white racing stripes. This was the fastest Durango model of the entire generation, able to do 0 to 60 in 6.7 seconds and the quarter mile in 15.2 seconds. The RT model with the regular 5.9 V8 had a 0 to 60 of 8.2 seconds and the quarter mile of 16.3 seconds. A two-wheel drive version was added for $19.99, while the four-wheel drive versions had a choice of two different transfer cases. There was a traditional part-time system for those that were more serious about driving off-road, and a $395 full-time system that was better for road use in conditions that were constantly changing, such as rain or snow, and the full-time mode allows for the front and rear axles to turn at different speeds so the wheels don't fight each other in tight quarters and they're always getting traction. Both transfer cases use a manually operated shift-on-the-fly lever mounted on the floor. Now we shift our focus over to the second generation of the Durango from 2004 to 2009. This one had a fully boxed-in frame and was 7 inches longer, 2 inches wider, and 3 inches taller than the previous model, and it also offered a third-row bench with 3 seats, giving it the ability to seat 8 passengers if needed. Before being confirmed for production, this Durango would debut as a concept at the 2003 Detroit Auto Show, and the designers took the styling from the Dodge Powerbox concept car. You can find pictures of the concept on screen now. Daimler Chrysler also introduced a luxury counterpart to the Durango, the Chrysler Aspen, for the 2007 model year. Again, the models varied over the years, with trim levels such as the ST, SXT, SLT, and Limited at the top. By 2009, the base model 4x2 SE cost $28,130, and the 4x4 Limited began at $39,785. There's lots to talk about for the redesign, or as Dodge called it, in-your-face styling. The crosshair grille looks imposing, while there are new shotgun headlights as well. Dodge says they took some styling cues from the 1946 Dodge Power Wagon, including a steeply raked windshield and sloping roof. There are exaggerated fender flares, and those help the hood look very short and narrow. Dodge also tried to use a sloping roofline and a curved liftgate window to reduce the boxy SUV look. The taillights are very unique as well, as they look like afterburners from a jet fighter with 2 red stacked circles on each side. Dodge also showed off a facelifted Durango at the Dallas Auto Show in April of 2006, and that design would carry forward for the 2007 to 2009 models. So there was a redesigned grille, hood, headlights, fenders, and wheels, and the styling got visually sharper and crisper. The whole front end flows better with a cleaner hood design that doesn't seem so squished in, and I noticed when comparing the two, the 04 to 06 models look really pouty and sad, while the 07 to 09 ones have that upbeat look. The sides and rear didn't get much of an overhaul, and the high beltline was retained. 18-inch aluminum wheels became standard on the SLT and Limited, while 20-inch chrome clads were optional, both options fitting in well under the wheel arches. This time around, the Durango was officially a midsize SUV, but it didn't feel that way inside. There's 20% more glass than before for increased visibility, 15% more cargo space, now up to 68 cubic feet if there's one row of seats dropped, and 102 cubic feet with both rows dropped, and the rear doors open to a very wide 84 degrees. The front seats are comfortable, and the newer materials were used for 2007, including Yes Essentials fabric that was stain, odor, and static resistant. The second row seats again flip forward very easily, and they have their own climate controls. Black on white gauges were used along with a 4-spoke steering wheel design. The SLT models got real wood trim, while the Limited got brushed aluminum, along with high-tech climate control and the option of a hands-free Bluetooth cell phone system and 60-40 split last row seating. A new option for 2007 was bucket seats in the second row, which replaced the standard 40-20-40 bench seats. Also added were power up and down windows. Additionally, the inside had a focus of reducing noise, and Chrysler used their wind tunnel in Auburn Hills, Michigan to do so. So Dodge aerodynamically fine-tuned the mirrors in the front end, as well as recalibrated the motor mounts, added extra lamination layers to the windows, and injected foam into every nook and cranny to reduce as much interior noise as possible. Moving on to the performance, the base SXT trim level offered the 3.7-liter PowerTech V6 engine as standard equipment from 2004 to 2007. It delivered just 210 horsepower, 235 pound-feet of torque, had a 4-speed automatic transmission, and it could tow a 3,700-pound trailer while getting 16 city and 21 highway MPG. All the other trim levels offered the 4.7-liter PowerTech V8 standard, and that was rated at 230 horsepower, 290 pound-feet of torque, and got fuel economy of 14 city and 18 highway. The 4.7 did get a big upgrade for 2008, getting a boost of 68 horsepower up to 303, and 30 pound-feet of torque up to 330. So with that engine, the Durango could tow 6,050 pounds. The seemingly superior option though, for a cost of just $900, was the 5.7-liter V8 Hemi, and the 2004 Durango was the first SUV in Chrysler's lineup to use that Hemi. It was available on all trims except for the base SXT, and it gave a lot more power than the 4.7, with 335 horsepower and 370 pound-feet of torque. That even got bumped up further for the Hemi upgrade in 2009 to 365 horsepower and 390 pound-feet of torque. The fuel economy wasn't as great here at 13 city and 18 highway mpg for the 4-wheel drives, even with the multi-displacement system that would disable 4 of the 8 cylinders when cruising. The Hemi could also tow a whopping 8,950 pounds if you did opt for the 3.92 rear axle, and both V8s came with a 5-speed automatic transmission. One other very cool performance aspect to talk about was the 2009 Durango Hybrid, which shared its 2-mode hybrid system with the Chrysler Aspen. Chrysler only built under 1,000 of these in total, so it's not an easy vehicle to find. This system was developed by BMW, Mercedes-Benz, GM, and Chrysler, and it used an electrically continuously variable transmission, along with that 5.7 Hemi. So this ECVT has 2 electric motors and 4 fixed gears, and the total output of the whole system is 385 horsepower and 380 pound-feet of torque. The gas mileage has been boosted by 25% overall, so it's up to 19 city and 20 highway mpg, whereas in the normal Hemi it was 13-18. And the hybrid can also tow 6,000 pounds, but that's quite a lot less than the Hemi could. As for a few more details, this system has a traction power inversion module, where it operates in the first mode using just battery power until the SUV reaches 25 miles per hour. The second mode is meant for highway speeds. MDS is also still a feature here as well. Dodge says you're not supposed to feel the system working, but it was not seamless, and reviewers have experienced stutters during acceleration and various clunks and dead spots at certain speeds or when switching modes. Unfortunately, Chrysler shut down their Newark assembly facility, which produced the Durango and Aspen, so the last Durango rolled off the assembly lines on December 19th of 2008, and the 2009 models were the last for this generation of the Durango before they would return on a totally new platform for 2011. So that brings us to the next part of the video, looking at the reasoning for the cancellation and the flaws of the Durango. I've come up with 5 different reasons and or flaws that refer to the car or Chrysler decision making and execution. So now let's look at those reasons. The first reason would be declining sales, and a major factor contributing to that was the automotive industry crisis. We can see the Durango sold really well for the first bunch of years, but then starting in 2006 there was a drastic fall off to the point where they sold just 3,521 in 2009. During these times, the price of fuel had been skyrocketing, and it discouraged many customers from buying SUVs and pickup trucks with low fuel economy, and the Durango certainly did have poor gas mileage across the board. The American Big 3 automakers, GM, Ford, and Chrysler, had been putting more of a focus on producing SUVs, as they had been getting very popular and had high profit margins. So as the sales began to slide, these companies just didn't have many other fuel-efficient offerings. When Chrysler discontinued the Durango, they even said the reason was, quote, the global economic slowdown and auto industry contraction, as well as the market's continuing movement towards smaller vehicles. End quote. Part of that automotive industry crisis and economic recession took a severe toll on Chrysler, where they saw a 30% decline in auto sales across the board in 2008, and they started cutting costs and ending up filing for bankruptcy on April 30th of 2009. So their actions included laying off over 4,000 employees, raising their liquid capital, and proving long-term viability to the US government, who was going to bail them out of their debt. Chrysler needed to close their Delaware plant, where both the Aspen and Durango were produced, and as we've been over, they did this in December 2008. So without that plant, those vehicles couldn't be made, as the low sales just didn't generate any profits. You might ask, what about the hybrid Durango? Well, Chrysler spokesman Scott Brown did talk about that, saying that while there were no demand for full-size SUVs, there were lots of hybrid orders, but Chrysler couldn't keep their plants open just for those. First 2 reasons that we've been over are really what killed off the Durango, but I've also tried to look at a few other things. As we know, the Durango returned for the 2011 model year, but instead of being based on the Dodge Dakota with the body on frame, Dodge switched over to the different unibody platform shared with the Jeep Grand Cherokee. The Dakota would soon fizzle out anyways, so this was a smart move from Chrysler to build the Durango alongside the Grand Cherokee at the same Jefferson North assembly plant in Detroit, and this helped them gain economies of scale. Both vehicles shared the assembly line, running gear, powertrain, and chassis, so of course, Chrysler could save money that way. In order to make way for the new updated model, they had to discontinue the last version. The new unibody platform did help bring improvements in handling, along with smoother and more refined driving dynamics. It also brought the new 3.6-liter Pentastar V6 that was powerful but also had good fuel economy. Another lesser issue was that Chrysler was caught in no man's land with the Aspen and Durango, where one was meant for muscle and brawniness and the other was good for luxury, but didn't really have one complete SUV package that combined both sides. That changed for the next model in 2011, when the Durango got a higher-end Citadel model that offered many luxurious features along with the beastly 5.7 Hemi, so that could better compete with the other SUVs on the market. The final issue worth mentioning is reliability. Again, reliability is not a factor that killed off this SUV, but during this era, Chrysler wasn't known for high-quality products, and the Durango did suffer from a few issues. Just like the Aspen, there were some AC problems. The AC compressor would rattle during spirited driving. The AC would stop blowing out cool air if you had it on low for over 2 hours as well. There were problems with the factory remote start, keyless entry, and security systems. There were electrical problems with the oil change light and tailgate open lights. There were tons of issues with the radio hard drive locking up and requiring a reflash. There were also many defective transmission torque converter problems. And finally, many customers reported issues of the gas tank overfilling and not clicking off when it was full. So if you're still watching, you've reached the end of this video. If you do like this type of video, let me know in the comments section below, and make sure to give me some suggestions for what car I should do next. How do you guys feel about the 2 generations of the Dodge Durango? Do you love it? Do you hate it? And did you ever own one of these? Let me know down in the comments section below. As always, thanks for watching, make sure to like and subscribe for all your Mopar content, and I'll see you in the next video.